Hey y'all, so I know I promised that I was going to do a Q&A on this stimulus package, a $2 trillion stimulus package that passed out of Congress called the CARES Act. I have the answers to your questions. I know I'm a couple days late, forgive me for that. I'm going to break this up into two videos. This video is going to deal with all the questions outside of the small business portion because that is very much involved. I still want to do more research on that before I get into that. So this is going to cover everything else. Now, another disclaimer, listen, I'm not your personal accountant, y'all. I'm not telling you to go out and spend no money that you ain't got in your pockets yet. This is just FYI, okay? Trust but verify, but verify, all right? So I'll give you guys the sources of where I'm getting the answers to your questions, and you can look it up for yourself. Okay, so first question I got was, what are the repercussions of the bill? You know, to be honest, I think that the Democrats have fallen really short in how they have messaged this bill. It's not adequate as though they like to point out. Yeah, I wouldn't have framed it that way. There are a lot of really, really, really good things in this bill, things that would not have been in the bill but for the Democrats, the Democratic senators fighting like hell to get it in there. So there is $500 billion for businesses, states, and municipalities. There's $349 billion loan program for small businesses, $130 billion in relief to medical and hospital industries. There's direct payments to Americans, expanded eligibility for unemployment insurance, and additional dollars, not just eligibility, but dollars for unemployment insurance. So there's a lot that is unprecedented in this particular bill. $2 trillion is a lot of money. They don't pull it out of thin air, chair. But there's a lot to be happy about in this bill. And so I'm going to get into all of those things. First 2 minutes on Twitter, you have to catch the rest on my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. So people want to know how you're getting your money. Well, Steve Mnuchin's been a little bit all over the place with this, but he has committed to sending the money in the next 2 weeks. If you filed a 2018 and 2019 tax return, you don't have to do anything if you have the direct deposit information on file and you qualify. There's been a bit of back and forth, but the Steve Mnuchin and the Treasury Department has said that if you're getting Social Security benefits, you don't have to file a tax return to get the stimulus check. So if you're getting, Social Security or your veterans benefits from the government and you're not filing taxes, then they're going to use that information that they're using to give you your Social Security or your veterans benefits to give you your stimulus check. And so that's done without having to do anything. If you have not filed your 2018 or your 2019 tax returns, that's what you got to do. You got to file your tax returns. If you're not on Social Security or you're not getting veterans benefits or disability, you have to file your tax return. That's how you get the money. Okay. And you'd be wise to put your direct deposit information. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait for a check, which takes longer. And obviously, they're going to prioritize the direct deposits over getting the checks out. One of the good things about the bill is, a lot of times we know when it comes to these tax returns, if you get one, you don't owe. There are different ways that it gets impounded, right? Where you don't get your payment. Well, the government made a lot of exceptions to the offsets to your accounts, to this check. So your check is not going to be impounded, for instance, if you owe taxes to the government. One exception that's notable that they did make is if you owe back child support, you will be getting that check snatched. So people who, if you don't pay your child support, child, don't think that the government's going to hang your ass a $1,200 check. You're not going to get it. Okay. So I think that I've covered that. One of the things that was talked about beforehand, while this negotiation was happening, was means testing for the payments that has gone away on the lower side. Now on the upper side, that's still there, but on the lower side, you don't have to have a minimum income to qualify. And it's not earned income either that qualifies you. Like I said, if you're getting Social Security, if you're getting disability, you will qualify for a stimulus check. Let's see, what's my next question? Okay, so Kamala all day asked me, are they deposited like our tax returns? So I answered that question. Manscaution asked, how is it being distributed? I answered that question, direct deposit it or a check if you don't have, if the government does not have your direct deposit information on file. Will retirees and Social Security get a check? I've already answered that. Yes, they will. Any info on what veterans will receive and how. So there isn't a special amount for veterans per se. Like you don't get a bonus for being a veteran, but if you're getting veterans benefits, then you will qualify, that income qualifies you for a stimulus check. Like let's say you don't have earned income, but you're getting veterans benefits. And there's $20 billion in the bill for veterans health care. So for whatever that's worth, but there's not a, like I said, there's not a special amount for veterans. So another question, I feel like I skipped a section. No, I didn't. Okay. Another question that I got, was, I'm on SSDI. So that's Social Security Disability. My son just turned 17 and has no taxable income. I don't have taxable income and don't claim as a dependent. According to the bill, 17 and up, you don't qualify for $500. It's not defined as a child. It's not 18, not adult either. 17-year-olds won't qualify. That is correct. 17-year-olds do not qualify for the $500 payment. So your child has to be under the age of 17 years old, which means 16 years old or younger. It doesn't matter if they're a dependent or not. It doesn't matter. You're still not gonna get paid. So like if you have a college age dependent, you're not gonna get $500 for that person. It's only $1,600 or less. If a person, like for instance, if you're a college student, so the way it works is like, let's say between the ages of 17 and 24, if you're college age dependent, you're not going to get anything. So if you are claimed as anybody's dependent, you will not get a check. But that person won't necessarily get a check. The person who's claiming you as a dependent won't get a check unless you are under the age of 17. So that's how that stimulus, those stimulus checks are allocated. So there, you could call it donut hole, but I guess they're making assumptions about, I don't know what assumptions they made, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And by the way, a person doesn't have to be claimed as a dependent on the taxes in order for that person to be considered a dependent by the government. So what that means is that, let's say, you know, you have a college age student and you're not claiming them on their taxes, but you're providing more than 50% of their, you know, living expenses and things like that, that person is still considered a dependent. So I'm not sure what kind of certifications are involved because I think that these checks are pretty automatic. So like, let's say you have a college student, they're working part-time and they're doing a tax return, you're not claiming them, then they probably will get the stimulus check. But if they did a tax return and they mark off that they are being claimed by somebody else, they will not be getting a check, even if they pay taxes, even if they file taxes. Somebody asked a question, is it true that kids of undocumented immigrants who are mostly American citizens themselves won't receive the $500 that other American children will get? So yes, that is true because undocumented immigrants are not eligible for the stimulus check. So the checks are not going, so it's not that American children are receiving the checks, it's the taxpayers, the American taxpayers that are receiving the check. If you have kids, then you will receive checks for those kids. And I'm not saying that to justify, you know, the disparity between who gets checks or whatever, but that's how this works. So it's not like, you know, the kids get money and actually they're due to the income limits, you might have kids that are American and you can be an American tax-paying citizen and you don't get anything because of your income limit. So it's not, I mean, I don't consider it a check. I don't consider like that the kids are getting checks. I consider that you're getting a higher rebate based on how many kids you have. But yeah, I mean, definitely seems jacked up, right? Somebody asked, will there be any help for foster parents are those with guardianship of children. So yes, if you claim that child as a dependent on your taxes, then you will get treated the same as if you birthed the child yourself. If you're not claiming the child as a dependent, then no. You will not get any, the bill doesn't provide for foster parents to get any special treatment. It's based on you claiming the kid. And again, it has to be under the age of 17 as a dependent. And there are situations, as far as I understand, that foster parents do actually claim the children, same with guardianship. So that's what it's dependent upon: age and tax filing status. How you claim the person on your taxes. Okay, so I got a lot of questions about single versus married filing jointly versus married filing separately. So let me pull it back a little bit. There are four technically filing statuses that come into play here. There's single, there's head of household, there's married filing jointly, and married filing single. So single, presumably that means you don't have any kids. If you're a single parent and you have kids, you should probably be filing as head of household. That's what that designation is for. So head of household is a person who's unmarried that has dependents. Then you have married filing jointly. So there's one tax return. Married filing single, it's the same limits as married filing joint, cut in half. And the same benefits are cut in half. So that's how married filing joint versus married filing single returns. And in fact, this is directly from the bill. You can download the text of the CARES Act on page 146. It says joint returns in the case, so this is page 46, there's section 2 called joint returns. In the case of a refund or credit made or allowed under subsection F with respect to a joint return, half of such refund or credit shall be treated as having been made or allowed to each individual filing such return. So again, cut everything in half. All right. Somebody said, so if I'm single, working hard like a dog to the point I made over 100K last year, do I get the check since I was also head of household? Head of household has a specific meaning to it. It doesn't just mean that you're the captain of your castle or the captain of your ship or the king of your castle, however you want to characterize it. It means that you have dependents. So if you're single and you have kids and your filing status is head of household, then the cutoff for you is not $100,000. The cutoff for you is $112,500. There's a higher cutoff for the full amount, which would be the full amount would be $1,200 because it's just one working, one individual in the household, one adult individual in the household. But it's not, the cutoff is not $75K. What that it is for singles is $112,500K. Okay, so I don't know, like if you knew when you asked that question that head of household does have a specific tax filing meeting. But yeah, if you worked your ass off, I guess, and you made over 100K and you single, ready to mingle, or unmarried, you shit out of luck. That sucks, huh? That really sucks. This question says the bill statement says the bill favors married individuals to receive the full amount. Example, single person making 80K would not get the full amount, but a couple where one makes 80 and one makes 170 would get the full amount. Single parents are also at a disadvantage as well. Okay, so I don't agree with that assessment because 80 plus 70 is 150, which is exactly double what a single person, right? So, I mean, if you have $150,000 coming into your household for two people, then you are getting treated the same exact way as if one person who's having $75,000 come into their house. So I don't think that that's unfair. I think that that's fair. It doesn't matter how it's broken out. It's one household. So, and trust me, there are a lot of disadvantages to the married thing, because I know for that salt cap is $10,000, whether you are single or married. And I know that when it comes to me and my husband, we got fucked up the asshole with that goddamn SALT cap, because we pay a shit ton of taxes, state and local, and we have property taxes, and we don't get to deduct half of that shit because of the cap of $10,000. Single person wouldn't have that problem. If you pay $10,000 and you set. So there are benefits and pros and cons in the tax system for different people. Single parents, I don't think I agree with you either where single parents are at a disadvantage, because single parents have the head of household designation. So a single parent who is a head of household, their income cutoff is $112,500 to get the full $1,200. So for married, that in order to get the full 500, the cutoff is 150,000. For single is 75,000. So there is an advantage for single parents in terms of you don't have another working adult in the household, at least not by tax filing status. Maybe you do have another person. Like, let's say if you're a single parent who's unmarried and you got two grown people in the household, you kind of coming up a little bit, okay? Because you get the higher threshold, and then your unmarried spouse would also get that. But we're not gonna go into all that. The whole point is that it's not single and married. It's single, head of household, and married. Those are the filing classifications. Okay. So somebody says, the stimulus has me totally confused. I resorted to thinking I'm getting nothing, so I'll be surprised something shows up. I claim head of household. Is that treated as single? And does the money only go to those who filed for unemployment or for everyone? So I've already addressed, no, single and head of household are two completely separate designations with different thresholds. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that your income thresholds also determine what you will get for your children. So the most you'll get per child is $500, but that $500 phases in and out depending on your income limits. So if you're a head of household, you might, for each of these, so we're going to not talk about single, because if you're single and you have a child, you should not be filing single. I'm not giving you tax advice, but I'm just saying, in theory, how about that? You would be filing head of household, not single. So let's just talk about married and head of household. So even though you would hit the threshold to where you get no money out of the stimulus, the amount that goes to the taxpayers or that's allocated as you being a taxpayer, if you have kids, you could still get a check for that for each child. The max check is $500 depending on your income. So for instance, and the Washington Post has a calculator that's really good. It's not financial advice, so don't go spend money based off of a Washington Post calculator, child. But if you want to have a good idea, go look at the Washington Post calculator for the stimulus check. So I played around with a bunch of numbers and this, that, and the other. And so for instance, and now let me just throw in a number right here. Let's talk about head of household, right? So if you are head of household and you have one child at $112,500, okay, hold on a second. $1,600. Oh, no, okay. So wait, it phases out. So $112,500 is where you get the max amount, right? But as you go up, you start to get closer. Your $1,200 phases out, but you're still going to get the $500. So let me just put it like this. There's conceivably a point, not conceivably, there is a point to where you will get nothing from the $1,200, but you will still get something for the $500 for your child. Okay. So let me see. Let me play around a little bit with it. I think it might be 140,000. Nope. 137 maybe. Okay. All right, the magic number. If you're head of household, you have one child, the point to where you get nothing from the $1,200, but you still get the full 500 for your one child is $136,500. So that is the threshold. After that, then your stimulus payment starts getting cut off from the from having that one child. So I believe, and let me try to see if I can put these numbers in real quick. I want to say it was, so I think it's 141, so it must be 146. Nope, 146,500. So 146,500, you get nothing. But between whatever the number I had said earlier, I already forgot, and 146, you'll get something. So even though 112,500 is the cutoff to receive the full 1,200 plus the 500 if you're head of household, because presumably you have a child that's a dependent, then you get the full 1,700. Then it starts to phase out. Not the $500, but the $1,200 starts to phase out. Then at a certain point, the $500 starts to fade out. So that's how this works. So if you have questions about your particular filing status, you can play around with it, then go on ahead and go to the Washington Post calculator and find out. You can play around with a bunch of different things. That to me was the most helpful one that I've seen. So don't assume, again, that you're going to get a $500 check even if you don't get a $1,200 check. I mean, you might, but every child, every dependent does not get a $500 check. It's only, you have to have a certain income threshold. You have to be below a certain income threshold to get the $500. So I think I've said enough about that, but just in case just to recap the max amounts, single person, 75K gets you the max $1,200. Then it starts to phase out up until almost $100,000. For married filing jointly, it's $150,000 where you get the max amount. Then it starts to phase out. The max amount being $2,400 just for the taxpayers, not including the kids. Okay. Let me see. Where does it top out? 198,000 is where you get nothing from the 2,400. And then the head of household, you get the full amount up until 112,500. You get nothing from 136,500 from the 1,200. But then if you have kids, then that comes into the play. You can have as many kids that you can get $500 or some prorated amount of that $500 based on your income. So it's more complicated, but if you have kids and you don't, and you let me put it like this. If you have kids and you were thinking you were getting $500 no matter what, you need to check on that. If you thought that you weren't going to get anything because you make too much to get the $1,200, you might get something depending on your income of that $500 for your kids. If you have multiple kids, those thresholds go up. Okay. So let's see. Oh, and the income limit is based on your adjusted gross income, your AGI, and your file income status. It's not based on your taxable income status. So your SALT deductions, your itemized deductions, standardized deductions, that is not what it's based on. It's above the line. So, there aren't a lot of ways that your AGI comes down from your income. So if you were thinking like, oh, well, yeah, I made $200,000, but I gave money to charity and I have my property taxes and I have my mortgage interest rates. No, it's not based on your taxable income. It's based on your AGI. All right, let me see. I think I answered all of the tax filing status questions. If you're confused, let me just put it simply: go to the Washington Post and look at their stimulus check calculator. Then you could ignore everything I said. Okay, I think so. I've answered these. I have a spreadsheet here. Okay. Somebody asked me, are there any plans to make more $1,200 payments? So, Speaker Pelosi has talked about wanting to do another bill. This is something that a lot of senators talked about. My favorite senator, Kamala Harris, has talked about the need to do this to make more frequent payments and not just make this a one-time thing. But you have to get that through a Republican Congress. Now, keep in mind, the Republican Congress or the Republican Senate just wanted a huge ass pot of money to get to corporations. It was the Democrats that came in there and said, you need to give people some coin. Okay? So now that they've got their money for these corporations, they probably would be less inclined to pass another bill like this. But I've seen talk about infrastructure investments and things like that. So those are the kinds of things that perhaps, that would get Republicans on board. But I probably wouldn't count on it. The good news is that there's a lot of unemployment relief in this bill. So there are 10 million people that have filed unemployment claims in the past 2 weeks. There were a lot of revisions that has made it such that people will get more money. And the unemployment benefits have been extended and it should be easier to get unemployment benefits. So that's good. If you're a person who you have your job still, your hours haven't been cut, you're basically in mostly the same boat that you were in prior to all of this stuff happening, then do you really need another check? I mean, is it nice to have another check? Yeah, but I think my personal opinion is that I think that the unemployment aspect of it and potential investments in healthcare for people who are unemployed and coronavirus healthcare and things like that, I think that's an appropriate flow of resources. So I would expect that before there are additional stimulus payments, that there would be more of an emphasis on unemployment with these astronomical unemployment numbers. Somebody has said, I feel like I had skipped something. Let me see, where is it at? Okay. All right. Somebody asked me, why was the bill mean tested and inadequately took into account the cost of living for people in higher cost areas? It's a Republican bill. The Republicans, they actually wanted to means test on the lower side, meaning people who didn't make money, they didn't want to give the money. So I think the Democrats made an improvement on that. I think means test says the answer, right? I mean, in theory, you have the means, right? If you are making a certain income to where the government doesn't need to give you $1,200. That sucks ass for me, but it is what it is with that. Also, I think in terms of the cost of living and all that kind of stuff, they kept it simple. They use AGI. All of this stuff is pretty much calculated very easily and automated. You get the check. I think the point is to get money into Americans' hands, and I'm not defending them, but I'm just saying, logically speaking, the point is to get money into American people's hands as quickly as possible, and keeping it simple makes that easier to do. Somebody said, how much of bill is considered pork or completely unrelated to pandemic efforts, effects on businesses and individuals? I think that depends on how you define pork. From my research, I don't consider there to be a lot of pork. I don't, but it's possible that there's pork in there. I guess if you think that any money for corporations is pork, then that's something, but I wouldn't characterize it that way. If somebody said, with all the restrictions on who gets a stimulus check, how disparate are the numbers for the Black community? I did not, from my analysis and my interpretation, I don't see that there's a disparately negative impact on the Black community. Most Black people will qualify for the stimulus checks based on the amount of money we make, right? So, I mean, if you're a Black person who makes good money, you're not gonna get shit, but that's not a huge chunk of Black people. Certainly, of the different racial demographics, the people that are making good money that won't get a check as a percentage of the other people in that race are much smaller from Black people. Also, because of stuff like Social Security, because they eliminated the means testing on the lower end, that has eliminated disparities that would have impacted Black people. Also taking into account Social Security and disability, that those would have been things that could have disadvantaged Black people. But I don't see, and somebody can correct me on this, or somebody can point it out themselves, I don't see how it disparately impacts Black people on the negative side, based on my analysis and my research. And I have yet to see anybody that has pointed that out. Now, with that being said, we do understand that Black people are obviously disparately impacted by the coronavirus, because we have all these systemic issues. We have these different Black people tend to have pre-existing conditions that are particularly vulnerable to coronavirus. Senator Kamala Harris has talked about this in great length, about high blood pressure, about asthma, sickle cell anemia, lupus, and things like that, which obviously are a huge concern. Those are issues that have been there. And we see there was some data that came out of, I want to say Michigan, where Michigan has had, I think, 30, and I'm might not be 100% precise, but I believe I saw it was like 30% of the cases in Michigan are Black people. 40-something% of the people who've died are Black people, but yet Black people only make up 14% of the population in Michigan. Those are the numbers, if I can recall correctly off the top of my head, that I saw. So we see, and it's obvious, it's evident that this is impacting Black people negatively, or more, it seems to be impacting us more. But in terms of the design of this particular stimulus bill, which I'm discussing, it's not designed in any kind of way to further disadvantage Black people. There are measures put in place to try to target vulnerable communities, in particular with different funding that's available. But I don't think that alone is going to rectify it. Part of it is, we already have the pre-existing conditions, and so a big part of it, like I said, Kamala has talked about this, is awareness and getting Black people to understand the vulnerabilities that we have, make sure that we're staying home, make sure that we're protecting ourselves so that we don't catch it, and making sure that resources are available in our communities so that when we go get healthcare, that we have access to it, and things like that. So those are things that's advocacy that is happening, not, so I don't think that it's being brushed aside. Let's just put it that way. Okay, somebody said, had a comment. Since December, I've been working as a contractual employee for the Board of Education. As of today, they're forcing the contractual employees to file unemployment because they will get more money. Ain't that some shit? I mean, that was one of the complaints that Tim Scott's punk ass and Lindsey Graham had with the bill because they felt like, well, if you only make $7.25 an hour and you get laid off, you're going to get paid more money. Well, shit, why the fuck are people only getting paid $7.25 an hour in 2020? That's the problem. But Democrats fought really hard for that additional unemployment check. So if you're not familiar, the stimulus pack or the CARES Act provides an additional $600 per week in unemployment insurance. Let me make sure. Is it $600 per week? Yeah, I believe it's per week. I want to double check on that. It's not per month. It's per week. Let me just make sure. Hold on. Sorry. You can fast forward. I keep seeing the $600 number, but I'm not seeing whether it's per week or not, or per month. Come on, help me out. I'm gonna pause this. Okay, I was right. $600 per week. So whatever you get from your state unemployment, you're going to get $600 on top of that. So the point of that was most state employments only give you 50 to 40, 50% of your income replacement with your unemployment. So this wanted to try to get you whole, in theory, get you whole with your paycheck. So if you get unemployment insurance, there's an extra $600 per week that would not have been there but for this bill. And I know that's something that Democrats worked really hard on. I know Kamala Harris had introduced the Pandemic Disaster Assistance Act, which it seems like it's probably covered pretty much in the legislation that we had. But Congresswoman Karen Bass pointed out how much Kamala Harris worked on the unemployment aspect of the CARES Act. So there's that. So that's, I think that's good. We have massive wage inequality in this country. You're already taking a hit in theory if you have unemployment insurance. I mean, if you have unemployment because you're not getting 100% of what your paycheck was. But the $600 is irrespective of how much you were getting paid. Now, there will probably be people that will complain about that. And that will say, well, shouldn't it have been a percentage of your income and this, that, and the other? Again, it's about keeping things simple. And it's $600 to me is better than nothing. So what the bill does, let's go back to the unemployment piece, is, again, it provides an extra $600 per week for up to 4 months. And that goes through July 31st. Now, they will have the option of re-upping that, but that's what's written in the bill right now. It provides eligible workers an additional 13 weeks of coverage. So if you run out on the state side, they still give you another 13 weeks. So some states give you up to 26 weeks. So now you get up to 39 weeks. Not all states give you 26 weeks, but let's just say up to 39 weeks of unemployment insurance. So that's what is done through this bill. So somebody said, I have a question. I have qualified for unemployment in Kentucky before the relief package went through. Are they going to automatically recalculate my weekly amount or do I need to refile or something? So based on my research, and I could be wrong, but based on my research, you do not need to refile. It's going to be automatic. But please check on it. I didn't find anything to say that you had to refile. Everything that I saw made it seem like it was automatic. But I don't know if you, let's say, I don't think it's retroactive. So I'm pretty sure that, if you had been getting unemployment, then just going forward, you'll get the extra $600. Could be wrong on that too. It might be retroactive, but I don't believe so. Let me see. My ex is a self-employed carpenter and is confused about how to apply for unemployment benefits. And should he file 2018 return in order to get a $1,200 payment he neglected to file last year? Okay, you have to file your taxes either 2018, 2019. to get the payment. So the answer to that part is yes. How do you apply for unemployment benefits? You have to go through your state agency and apply for your unemployment benefits there. Now, the good thing about the bill is that it has expanded the people that are qualified to get the to get the unemployment assistance, because typically you would not all of these people would be qualified. So I'm going to go down the list real quick of the people. So previously these people would not have normally have qualified. So that would be business owners, self-employed individuals, independent contractors, gig workers, those with limited work history and history of wages earned. So those people would not have typically gotten unemployment insurance. Now they can. And so and it also affects people if you're unemployed, partially unemployed, or unable to work. And it has a whole list of reasons, most of which probably every single person, almost every person without a job would be able to qualify for. So this information that I'm looking at is from Ogletree.com. So you can just search on that website to find it. But there's a laundry list: diagnosed with COVID, symptoms, process seeking medical diagnosis, a household member has COVID, you're providing care to a household member with that, child or other person in the household which you're caregiver for can't attend school or daycare, unable to reach work due to quarantine, cannot attend work because you have been advised to self-quarantine, scheduled to commence employment. So if you haven't started your job yet, but you were scheduled to start, then you could be eligible for unemployment insurance. You're the sole wage owner due to death of the head of household as a result of COVID. You were required to quit your job because of the disease. Your place of employment closed because of it. You're self-employed. You're seeking part-time employment. And again, like I said earlier, you don't have sufficient work history, otherwise would not qualify for unemployment under your state employment program. So there's a lot of people that will, for the first time, be able to get unemployment benefits because of this bill. So that's a really good thing. Okay. Again, not everybody's going to be happy with that. You can't satisfy everybody, but there's a lot of really good things for people who are losing their jobs, that they would have been in a much worse position without this bill. And I'm not a cheerleader for the bill. I'm just stating the facts, yeah. Okay. So again, if you're self-employed, gig worker, independent contractor, then you qualify for unemployment based on all the laundry list of reasons I just read off Ogletree.com if you want to go look at that list again. All right, so I feel like I answered all the questions that are not about small businesses. I do want to do a video on that. I've looked into the stuff. I've come through the website. I recommend watching Roland Martin if you didn't see that yesterday. There was a really good segment on that. That would be Thursday, April 2nd. OperationHope.org has a lot of really good information on that. You can go to SBA.gov. There's a lot of good information about that. I will do another video. I think that I've heard some things being put out there that aren't exactly accurate. And so I want to help dispel some of that, but I don't want to contribute to inaccuracy. So that's why I want to do a little bit more research and have my notes ready to go and try to be thorough as I can. But don't wait for me. Go to SBA.gov. Look for yourself if it's an urgent matter. There's a lot of information out there for people. I did not go over every single benefit from the bill. I would recommend there's a website. This is militarybenefits.info, and there's a CARES Act bill on there. It's very thorough. It has a lot of information on there. It talks about unemployment. Retirement distributions. You may have heard about how some penalties will be waived. There's a lot of information on there, bullet point information, really easy to follow. I would recommend that website to just give you like a general overview of the information. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, you know what? Let me just wrap it up. And let me just say, what are the big takeaways? The tools, let me just equip you with some tools. If you want to know how much money you're going to get, WashingtonPost.com has a great calculator. Have a really good calculator. Keep in mind, single, head of household, married, filing jointly, or single. Those are the three major categories. Income limits apply to both your $1,200 or $2,400 check that gets prorated down depending on your income, as well as the $500 checks that you get for each child under the age of 17 that you claim on your taxes as a dependent. That has different income limits as well. You might phase out of the $1,200 or $2,400, but still qualify for some portion of the $500 for each child. That's important. Unemployment. You need to apply for unemployment through your state agency. Each state agency administers their own unemployment. The $600 from the federal government that is for 13 weeks. No, it's not for 13 weeks. It's through July. $600 per week. That's going to go through your state unemployment. It's not something that you get a separate check for. Unemployment benefits have been extended an additional 13 weeks on top of whatever you get for your state. And so there's relief there. There's a lot of different things that are happening. Look at your state in terms of, perhaps there being moratoriums on evictions, between there being, loan payment relief, credit reporting relief and things like that. I know Kamala's working on trying to get the credit agencies to suspend penalty reporting and things like that. She's discussed that a couple of times. There's a lot of information out there. I did a Q&A because I'm like, well, you guys tell me what you want information on, but I've only scratched the surface in this 47-minute video. So I highly, highly encourage you. Somebody made the comment, I'm just going to assume I get nothing. Don't assume that. Don't assume that. There are a lot of resources out there for all of the shit that we talk about, our incompetent, fucked up government. There are a lot of really good things in this stimulus bill, a lot of really good protections. Nobody says it's perfect. Everybody talks about how inadequate it is, but don't assume that there's nothing in there for you, because there likely is something that you didn't know about. Federally backed mortgages, federally backed student loans. Like I said, I haven't scratched the surface of a lot of things. Look into it. Look into it and see if there's something that can help you, that can apply to you at home. If you're watching this, that means you on a computer, so you got time to, again, I would say military, what was it again? Militarybenefits.info/cares. What is this called? I don't know. That little sign. Act has a very, very, very long list, very easy bullet pointed list of things that you can look at to see if anything applies. Again, also look at your state agencies and what your individual state is doing to help relieve the pressures of coronavirus. Stay home. If you go out, try to get yourself a makeshift mask. Now they're finally admitting that people should be wearing masks, and be safe. And I will check you on my small business administration package video.